All right, people. Review of the week time. So, a lot to talk about, a lot to go over. Some stuff I really don't want to talk about. Oh, you know what that's about, but we have to talk about it briefly. Nonetheless, I bet you know what that's going to be. But let's talk about, on a good note, some good fights that were on last night because Queensbury did a show last night. Personally, I actually enjoyed it. It had some real good fights on it. It had Zach Miller versus Leon Woodstock. That was a Leon Woodstock. I feel for Leon Woodstock in a way because he was a Queensbury fighter. I don't know if he still is, but when he was undefeated, he was certainly a Queensbury fighter, and he was looking okay. He wasn't setting the world alight or anything like that, but he was looking somewhat okay. Every time he stepped up, like to domestic level, he's always come short. He's always come short, which is unfortunate. But he always gives it a really, really good go, if nothing else. Leon Woodstock, I think, was kind of, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but he was with Frank Warren in the kind of really dark days for Queensbury. You know, when he was signing obscure fighters, really, in some cases. They might have been unbeaten, but you could tell they're not going anywhere. They were pretty much the best that Frank Warren really could muster at the time, and I'm not saying that's Woodstock, but people around like lower that level, of course. So he's really been around the block. Great fight against Zach Miller. It was good. It was entertaining. Zach Miller prevailed. We saw Jack Turner. I've seen a few of his fights. He looks very heavy-handed. He looks actually quite good, Jack Turner, I have to say. I like what I'm seeing thus far from Jack Turner. He fought this guy, Nicholas Augustin Mogazer. I'm butchering the name, but an Argentinian. Unbeaten he was as well going into it. Boy, he came to win. I wish more limited fighter, yes. The opponent was limited, but he came with desire and he came to win. And he certainly picked up rounds early on. He was certainly doing that. Jack Turner, he didn't finish the fight with not a graze on his face, certainly not, rather the contrary. So that was a really, really good scrap. Jack Turner showed, I think it was round 7 or 8, or maybe it was a bit earlier than that because I don't have the rounds directly from it, but I remember seeing it show that he definitely had the power. He dropped him with a left hook. Nose was bloodied and it was bleeding like a tap actually when he was dropped. And then he went and he dropped him again. Referee waved it off, but you could tell the opponent he'd fight in him. But I think by that point, and there was a long way to go in that round as well, I think it was over a minute to go. Yeah, if that was in America, they would have let it go. Most likely. If that was in America, they would have let it go. And then, as if it couldn't get any better, we get into the main event. And the main event, Jack Rafferty versus Mark Chamberlain. I liked the fight on paper. It seemed really good. It seemed like it'd be a fun fight. Turkey Al-Sheikh was very high on Mark Chamberlain a year ago until he fought Josh Padley, who we know how good Josh Padley has turned out to be. This was a cracking fight. This was end to end. Some would argue that a draw is the fairest result. For me personally, I felt that Jack Rafferty just nicked it. Just nicked it for me. I know a lot of people had Chamberlain win it. It was one of those fights where like it really truly could have went either way. It was, and the good thing is I haven't seen anyone, because people are unbelievably quick to do this nowadays. I haven't really seen anyone out there saying it's a robbery. Oh my god, it's a robbery. No, it was genuinely close. It was razor thin. I mean, a draw in some aspects is the fairest result. Both guys have a lot of respect for one another. They showed that immediately after the fight and in the interview with Dev Sani. Both guys were saying, right, let's do it again. And honestly, do it again. Heartbeat, easy, no problem, no questions asked. Do it again. They'll need some. They will be definitely feeling it today, and they will definitely be needing a bit of time to recover. But 100% do it again. It was a great fight. Absolutely great fight. And this is what I mean by, look, they didn't bring out all the bells and whistles for this fight or for this card, right? They didn't, right? In terms of fights this month, we really had the Ottawa White fight. That was the big one, and then that's really been it, right? But this was a smaller show. It was in Altrincham in Cheshire, which I've no idea where that is. Is it kind of, I think Cheshire, is that like near like Wales? Is that like Shropshire or somewhere like that? Or I don't know. I'm only guessing there. But it was a very small arena. Not the bells and whistles out, but we had good fights on at the end of the day. And we had really good fights. So for me, it was a good card. I enjoyed it. I want to see that fight again though. Jack Rafferty versus Mark Chamberlain. Great fight first time. Draw fair. For me personally, fair result. So let's go. Let's do it again. Let's get a winner this time. So I really did enjoy that. I don't have the BoxRec page open in front of me here, but I know of a certain someone who made his return to the ring last night, the president, Ike Ibeabuchi. Yes, Ike Ibeabuchi made his return, his triumphant return to the ring. He won in 3 very one-sided rounds. BoxRec haven't updated it, which is weird because I know on Wikipedia they actually have updated it to he is now 21 wins, no defeats. Crazy. Stopped the guy in 3 rounds. That was in Lagos in Nigeria. It was in a stadium as well. Never heard of the guy. Idris Afini. I still can't believe, like, look at this, right? August 23rd, 2025 was when he fought. So yesterday. 20th of March 1999 against Chris Bird was the last fight prior. I mean, like, that's insane. Now, Ike Ibeabuchi, he looks, for a guy of his age, 52 years old, he looks in shape. Really good shape. But you can see clips of that fight online. He's not beating anyone with a pulse. No way. He looks old in there. He looked, well, very old. Very old. Immediately after that fight, after 26 years, Ike Ibeabuchi shocks the boxing world with a comeback win, and he calls out Oleksandr Usyk. If you had told me when I started this YouTube channel, however many years ago, 6-7 years ago now, that you'd be covering you wouldn't be covering it, but you'd be talking about an Ike Ibeabuchi fight, and then you would be actually given a little bit of time to him calling out Oleksandr Usyk, who is undisputed heavyweight champion, I would say I've literally got a better chance of dating someone like Sydney Sweeney than that. But there you go. There you literally go. Call out Oleksandr Usyk. No. I mean, Usyk is 38 years old. He's one fight left. I think he's one and done, quite frankly, after that. I don't want to see him go out with a win over Ike Ibeabuchi. Taking his O won't really impress anyone. If he'd never gone to prison and someone like a Lennox Lewis or someone like that would have took his own the early 2000s, be impressive because he was useful. Man's 52. Would he even get sanctioned? I'm just trying to think, like, if it was maybe in Riyadh, depending on who the organisers are, just hypothetically, they might sanction him. The board probably wouldn't. I would imagine they probably wouldn't. The British Boxing Board. If you did it in America, maybe, depending on what state, like Florida or Texas, would probably sanction it. But yeah, that's just, don't be fighting Oleksandr Usyk. You ain't gonna beat Oleksandr Usyk. No way about it. Prime Ike Ibeabuchi against Usyk. That would have actually been an interesting fight. I probably would have still favoured Oleksandr. It would have been interesting because Ibeabuchi was strong. He was solid. He had a good punch output. He could punch as well. Physically strong. That would have been a real good fight. I would have favoured Usyk certainly in their primes, both of them in their primes. But that would have been an interesting fight. Today now at 52, it will be over like that. It will literally be over like that. Let's have a look, see at some boxing news before I go, and I have to talk about inevitably I have to talk about a fight that was announced this week. All right, everything boxing have. Canelo Alvarez, Boots Ennis, they've actually been sparring one another in the run-up to Canelo Alvarez's fight against Terence Crawford. Obviously, Boots Ennis is fighting in October. I think October the 11th, is it, if I'm not mistaken? In terms of preparation, and look, there was a there was a pad clip of Canelo that was doing the rounds, and a lot of people were saying they weren't impressed with him. He looked slow and everything. I looked at it and I thought, you know what, like, that's just Canelo just going through the motions, not really giving away much. I wouldn't read too much into it. I wouldn't necessarily worry. Training with someone like Boots Ennis, similar size to Crawford, probably faster at this stage. Well, definitely faster at this stage in his career than Crawford. So training with someone like Boots Ennis, I mean, you literally cannot get any better. I don't think he switch hits the same way Crawford does as seamlessly. I think it's pretty much the same stance with Boots, but yeah, I'm thinking that is quality preparation. It's ideal. It really is. And when it comes down to it, having the right sparring partners, it makes all the difference. It really, truly does. It really, truly does. And sparring Boots Ennis, man, I think that's a masterstroke by Canelo Alvarez. What I wouldn't give to be a fly on the wall in the gym where those spars are taking place, honestly, I would love it. I would love to do it. I would love to be there and just see the spars. Now, Netflix and I was going to say DAZN, but Netflix and Riyadh season have announced the broadcast team for the Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford show. John Anik is the play-by-play. Max Kellerman, fight analyst. Love Max Kellerman. A lot of time for him. Andre Ward, again, good pundit. Michael Buffer and Joe Martinez, the ring announcers. That'll obviously Buffer for the main event. Heidi Arnold, never heard of her in the nicest way. Doesn't mean she's bad, I'm not familiar with her. Jim Gray, God, we're getting HBO and Showtime all on the one. We've got Coppinger on there, Mark Kriegel. Okay, it's not bad. Mario Lopez, Antonio Tarver. I love Antonio Tarver as a pundit. I think he's so much fun to listen to and he's got good insight. So yeah, I'm liking that. I'm liking the punditry team. I wonder what happened with wonder what happened. I think Jim Lampley's only doing ring shows now, isn't he? I'd love to have Jim Lampley. Do you know what, right? Jim Lampley, I watched him all the time, like on HBO. Obviously, we don't get HBO over here, but you watch by other means. And I love listening to Jim Lampley. I loved that HBO team. It was just every time they replaced someone, it was always someone good, So when it was Larry Merchant leaving, and then it was Jim, and then it was Max Kellerman, it was good. You George Foreman, who I really liked. He was just banter. And then you've got Manny Stewart, you've got Roy Jones. It was just never Gil Clancy back in the 90s. It was just always good with HBO. And for Jim Lampley to come back after a 7-8 year hiatus and to still, the magic hasn't gone. I'm so happy about that because you want Jim Lampley to come back and be on it, and he is. So that's great. I really like it. I wish he was doing more shows because Jim Lampley is just one of my go-tos for pundits and commentators. I think he's the gold standard. I really do. Jim Lampley is the best in my opinion. It looks as though Jarell Big Farmer Miller versus Michael Hunter has been cancelled. Miller says Hunter officially out, fight off, can't make this stuff up. Yeah. Look, it's not ideal. I was looking forward to the fight. It's just an absolute joke. Michael Hunter has absolutely talk about a train wreck of a career. You should have beat Povetkin. You should have had the win that night in Saudi Arabia. It wasn't in Riyadh, it was in Jeddah, I think. You should have had the win that night. It was a draw. At which point you push on. You push on, you listen to Eddie Hearn, you do what he says in terms of, this is how we're going to match it, this is what we're going to do. Instead, you look for the easiest option to make money. You alienated yourself from all major promoters, and you go in the year 2024, I think is when he did it. But you go and you sign with Don King, a man whose history is known over the last 50 years, and it not being good. A tree is known by its fruits. And you still sign with him? Really? And then you wonder why crap like this happens. Honestly, it's mental. I don't know what he was thinking. Anyway, let's move on from that to this. I'm happy. Okay, so before I talk about this, let's talk about something that I might enjoy talking about. So Anthony Joshua's not going to fight Jake Paul. Thank God. All right, thank God for that. Jake Paul, I'll talk about that now in a sec. I'm trying to avoid it, but I have to talk about it. Anthony Joshua is now free. He's now free to fight whomever he may choose. There's a lot of talk, a lot of whispers that it's going to be Martin Bakole. Right? I like that fight for Anthony Joshua at this stage. A year ago, my opinion would have been hell no. I think, in fact, even prior to the Joseph Parker debacle, my opinion would have been hell no. Now, however, Martin Bakole, he's already talking about retiring if he can't get a big fight. And I interpret that as not, I want to retire because I can't get a big fight. It's, I can't stay in shape and I can't be bothered to stay in shape unless I have sufficient enough reason to. That's what I interpret that as, right? Now, Bakole, after that brilliant win over against Jaron Anderson, even in that fight, he wasn't exactly, well, he's never been slim, but you know what I mean? He was still heavy, but light enough that he was able to impose himself on Anderson, do what he needed to do, and he looked very good doing it. He then goes and balloons up in weight, takes a fight on basically 2 days' notice, of which there's not even a chartered flight for him. He has to commute all the way to Saudi Arabia, so he arrives literally after the weigh-in on the day of the fight, probably got no sleep, and turns up in no shape to fight, gets stopped in 2 rounds, and then doesn't even lose the weight in time for his next fight in May. So you've got over 2 months, you still couldn't lose the weight, and you escape with a draw against Efe Ajagba in a fight you really did lose. You really did lose that fight. Now, he's still out of shape. You can see the videos of him. He's still out of shape. Anthony Joshua isn't out of shape. Even though he's injured, he still is able to take over. And now you're talking about retirement. So I think right now is actually a good time to do that fight. Again, if they did it in Africa, you're talking Nigeria versus he's from the Congo, isn't he? Yeah, he's from the Congo. So that would be huge. You do that on neutral ground, Ghana, somewhere like that. It'd be brilliant. It'd be brilliant for African boxing, brilliant for the continent of Africa as well to have a big show like that. If you can't do it there, okay, do it in Riyadh, you know. But I actually quite like that fight for AJ now, because I think that AJ still has some desire there. And he does. I think there is still desire for Anthony Joshua there, albeit maybe not quite what it once was, but I think it's still there. Whereas for Bakole, I think his desire is to just top up the bank account. That's what I think his desire is, you know, what's on the menu. Not boxing, just what's on the menu. I think that's what his desire is. And how much am I going to tip it? Because I'm going to check how big my wallet is. I think that's literally what Bakole is after now. So with that being said, I make the fight closer. If you're talking about the Bakole who fought Anderson against this version of AJ, we don't know what kind of version of AJ we got. He's not fought in a year, and he was knocked out badly last time. So that, I would be like, oh God, Bakole's going to win. I don't know. Bakole's now been knocked out, and he's been beaten up by Ajagba, and he's still not in shape. So that's the fight I would do. I mean, there is still rumblings of Tony Yoka. Okay, I mean, I would rather the Bakole fight. I'd rather that. But yeah, Yoka, all right, I'd watch it. I would, but I think the Bakole fight is just more appealing. It's just a more appealing fight than the Yoka fight, for me anyway. This fight right here, well, it's not officially a fight, it's an exhibition. BoxRec are listing it though. They're not listing it on their pro records, but they're listing it on their exhibition records. BoxRec will list an exhibition fight, but they won't list the WBA title. Anyway, Gervonta Tank Davis is going to face Jake Paul in an exhibition in Atlanta, Georgia, on November the 14th on Netflix. I still can't believe it, and I am very not okay with it. I think Tank Davis should be stripped of his title. I think it's a farce. £100 probably the difference in weight, thereabouts. Nearly a foot in height. That's just Tank Davis, any chance he's had to unify, to fight his contemporaries. If he has fought them, he's had all the advantages, rehydration clauses, catch weights. So I'm not going to give you credit for that, because it's not a fair fight, right? And that's one of the times he's fought a contemporary. The rest of the time, nope. No unifications, no anything, and it's so frustrating. As talented as he is, he's now in his 30s, and he's going to be fighting Jake Paul in an exhibition bout. That is just scandalous, as far as I'm concerned. I've defended a lot of things Jake Paul has done. Mike Tyson fight, not including that was another farce. My rationale with this is that, okay, you are getting people interested in the sport who maybe wouldn't be. But there probably is a line you cross in terms of absolute tomfoolery, and this is it. This is it right up in here. That's what I got to say on that one. I'm not even going to labour the point on that too long, because it's just, yeah. The IBF have ordered Martirosyan versus Josh Kelly. Following Erickson Lubin's withdrawal, the IBF have now ordered Bakram Martirosyan to defend his title against Josh Kelly next. Interesting. Martirosyan has looked good in his career. He obviously devastatingly beat Tim Tszyu. Josh Kelly hasn't. I never really was that keen on Josh Kelly. Not say there's anything wrong with Josh Kelly as a person, I don't know him, but I never understood the hype that was around him when he first turned over. Sky and Matchroom were really, pushing it, oh, he's amazing, he's this. And it was like, meh, he's flashy, but, that's it. There's not really anything other than the flashiness. So when he got beat by David Avanesian, and he capitulated so quickly in that fight, it was crazy. He had a good 2 rounds, and then once Avanesian got on top, it was I know he had that cut in the top of his head, which probably did scramble his senses a little bit, but that was it was so quick. He just capitulated so quick. It was crazy. And he didn't look great in a couple of fights. He did look good against Troy Williamson, to be fair, winning the British title a couple of years ago. But not the last fight he had, the one he had against Ishmael Davis. I mean, yikes. And that was an Ishmael Davis coming in on basically a week's notice. So Josh Kelly, if Bakram Martirosyan is as good as I think he is, he's going to have no problem with Josh Kelly, in my opinion. Absolutely none. All right, they've announced the undercard for Canelo versus Crawford. It's not a bad undercard now, I have to say. We've got Sergey Boachuk versus Brandon Adams. I don't hate that fight. Quite like it, actually. I actually quite like that fight. We have Ivan Ditchko versus Jermaine Franklin. That'll be an interesting fight. I'm sure, it doesn't say it here, but I'm nearly sure they did announce that Lester Martinez will face, what's that guy's name, Christian Mbille, but I don't see it on here. Steve Nelson, to name a few. It actually looks a really, really decent undercard, because some of Canelo's previous undercards, yikes, they've been awful. The first Golovkin fight, that was a abysmal undercard. Shocking. Absolutely shockingly bad. The second Triple G undercard was actually quite good. But yeah, some of his undercards, they've been shockingly bad. So by Canelo standards, it's not a bad one. It's not a bad one. Vidal Riley, long-time boxer fighter, is now a free agent. He is no longer with Boxer. He is free, and that now means that Boxer stable is getting even thinner on the surface. What's going on there? What is actually going on with Boxer now at this stage? I don't know. I really don't know. It's a strange one. They can't afford to lose Adam Azim, Ben Whittaker. I think those are the two guys. If they lose them, you may as well just stick a fork in the company. You may as well, because you're getting these BBC shows. How many dates are you getting, right? If you're getting loads of dates, how are you going to fill the dates if you don't have the fighters, right? So if you lose Ben Whittaker and you lose Adam Azim, those two are key to this actually working. Key. Not Fraser Clark, not Lauren Price. Those two in particular. And who else does he have? Callum Simpson as well. He's a decent draw as well. You lose one of those three, or God forbid you lose them all, then you're done. And the fact that we're seeing fighters leave Boxer now, I'm wondering, is it the start of mass exodus? And if it is, I don't know I don't know how Ben Shalom will come back. I don't know how we'll come through that one. I really don't. I really, truly don't. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So, review of the week for another week. Hopefully you enjoyed that, people. I hope you all have a great week. I hope someone gets some good news this week, myself included. We will be back to business. Me and Ade should be filming this Wednesday at A&G Man. We should be getting a look back in as well this week as well. Fingers crossed that all goes well. So it's back to business. I head back to London on Tuesday, and then we're back into filming on the Wednesday. So it's all things go. We're 100 miles an hour non-stop. And I like it like that. It's been nice being home for the last 10 days. But I need to get back to London. I mean, there's too much on over there that I need to be focusing on and working on. So yeah, it's nice to come home. But we gotta make hay while the sun shines. So let me know your thoughts in the comments section below on everything I talk about in this video. People, as always, I hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. And until next time, peace.